What's going on, y'all? What's going on? I hope you guys got some popcorn ready and whatnot, because this is going to be a long one if you haven't read the description yet. This is going to be part three of Black on Black crime being a diagnosis and not being a narrative. Excuse me, being a narrative and not a diagnosis. Uh, but first, before I get too deep into this, let me go ahead and make sure that we actually are running live on Facebook, because that's where I'm streaming all of this to, is Facebook. Then once I get done with Facebook, I'll, 9 times out of 10, I'll take it, I'll go ahead and download it and put it on over on some other social media platforms, mainly YouTube. Now, if you guys are following me on this platform, Facebook, head on over to YouTube. I have a lot more content on YouTube that you guys should be taking a look at when it comes to business and just social economic issues and political issues at that too. But let's see if we're working. Are we working? Are we live right now? That's my main thing. Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? And yes, we're live right now. So let me change this font. I don't know why this font is like this. I didn't want it to be looking like permanent marker. There we go. There we go. That's better font. I want to show this on the stream. So, make sure I got all this straightened out before anything. All right, bet. So it looks like we're good. So on anytime you guys will comment on Facebook, I'll get the notification on the restream and I'll be able to reply there. But with that being said, let's go on ahead and try getting into this, because by now we should all be clear on something, and that is that black crime is not an observation at this point. Black on black crime is not an observation at this point. It is a tool, and tools are built with intention. And when they are built with intention, what they are built to do is to test. How can I put this? They are built to test in a field. And when they get tested in this field, they tend to get refined over time and reused because they actually work. And such as the whole narrative of black on black crime being a narrative, we all know that this works. So, and this works absolutely overwhelmingly and frighteningly well. So, in this part three of this is about what sits underneath this phrase, okay? So, that would be the machinery, the incentives, and the acquired agreements that nobody says out loud. And most importantly, how we actually stop playing defense and start building leverage. So, the first layer behind all this is how the language actually manufactures the reality here. Now, language is not just descriptive, it's directive. If you guys have ever got into the law of attraction and things like that, right? When you think of law of attraction, what it's more or less what you speak comes to light. It goes into the whole I am. And so this is why great people across all generations of life that we've lived have always spoken highly of themselves. So when you speak words like I am great or I am the shit, or not I am the shit, but when you speak words like I am great, I am magnificent, you tend to vibrate at a higher frequency than those in someone that's saying, hey, I am not a good person. I am a horrible person. You'll tend to vibrate higher than that person speaking negatively of themselves. So when you look at that language, it's not just a description as a descriptive. It's It's literally becoming the narrative. So when a society repeatedly labels a group as violent, three things happen here at once. And the first thing is that the perception shifts. This is something I said in the previous video. The perception shifts. Now, once policy follows the perception, the punishment now replaces the prevention. So once violence is now framed as a racial trait instead of a social outcome, the solution becomes control instead of actual care. So cages instead of classrooms. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of the school to prison pipeline. I spoke on this in the last video as well. Now, when it comes to the school to prison pipeline, you have to realize that, look at the schematics. Again, I'm gonna highlight this again for some of you guys, for those who didn't watch my last live. Look at the schematics of the school and look at the schematics of the prison. If you actually look and do a compare and contrast, the only difference that you see is that you are now encaged with other people who have committed these crimes. But when you are in the school presence, every only difference is that you have more freedom. That's literally it. You have more freedom. That's it. Everything that you can do in school, you can do exactly in a prison. You don't believe me? You can look this up. By now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have looked into the school to prison pipeline and were probably taken back by it. I know I was at first. So if you guys are watching the live, please come on into the live. I would love to hear your thoughts. Go ahead and drop your comments down below. If you want me to, I will leave the link to hop in on the chat so you guys can get on live here with me. But let's see. I'm gonna pass this around to some groups before I continue on. Post this in this group too. All right, boom, was approved in that group. Let's see here. Where is the one group that I wanted to post this in? All right. So now you have to realize that that whole school to prison pipeline, that now becomes what you would consider a surveillance. It becomes surveillance instead of stability. You know, a lot of people like to sit here and talk about police reform, things like that. I mean, policy reform and prison reform. Excuse me, that's what I wanted to say. Prison reform. But how many times or how many people that you know or that you yourself have gone into an institution and have gotten out and became different? I've literally sat down with people who have literally changed their lives. They've gone to prison, they've done their years, they've done their time, they sat in the county jail. You know, the whole song with you playing the violin, right? Kind of makes you want to get your mini violin and all that, right? But it didn't really make them a better person. In reality, what it did was kind of make them a better criminal. And if you just be real with yourself, you hear this all the time. Oh, when I went to jail, it didn't make me a better person. It just taught me how to get away with things a little bit more smoother. And if you haven't heard that before, you probably heard it now. I'm gonna let you know that. Because don't get me wrong, I went to prison, I went to jail, did my time in the county, and when I look back on this, right, I can't really say it made me a better person. I can't really say that it made me change for the better, because in reality, what it did was just taught me how to be more of a criminal, literally. And if no one else will tell you this shit, hey, let me be the first to fucking tell you. Going to prison really only makes you a better fucking criminal. And it's true. And when even further than that, right? When you think about it, this is not accidental. It's not. This is not accidental whatsoever. This is how empires talk when they want compliance without saying the quiet part out loud. So this whole phrase of black on black crime does one crucial thing. One crucial thing, right? It disconnects violence from responsibility. It's not just the individual's responsibility of someone who commits this harm any longer. So the whole systemic responsibility of the conditions that make harm predictable. So what it's doing is it's really telling the public that, okay, it's really telling the public that nothing can be done because this is who they are. That's what it tells the public. Nothing can be done because this is who they are. And that sentence in it kills reform before it can breathe. You're not even giving a person a chance to actually reform themselves. So the second layer here, right, is how the policy actually engineered the conditions that we're in as of right now. And let's be brutally fucking honest here and very specific on top of that, okay? Black communities, whether you wet Latino X or some other X form out there, right? Black communities did not randomly become under resourced. There's no way in the world that we just randomly say, hey, we're broke now. No. It is literally designed that way. And that's policy by policy and decade by decade. So redlining did not just limit where black families could live. What it did was it froze wealth accumulation. Let's say, for instance, right, you live in, or you want to buy some properties up in the neighborhood. But for some reason, that current property management, that property owner who now has control of that property, won't let you buy that property. You may sit back and question, why won't they let you buy that property? I went through this myself. When I was starting a whole homeless initiative out here in Allentown, PA. So I looked at a few properties before I can even get a chance to even get the funding to buy these properties. All the properties were taken up. So what this is really saying is that housing is the primary way Americans build intergenerational wealth. And if you cut that off, you guarantee a long-term instability. Mind you that you'll guarantee a long-term instability. Thank you for joining the live. I really do appreciate it. So when school funding, right? When school funding is actually tied to these property taxes, which is actually meant for underfunded neighborhoods, you know, the underfunded let me rephrase this because I lost my train of thought when you popped in. School funding, right? School funding tied to actual property taxes meant underfunded neighborhoods got underfunded schools. There we go. So when you think about it, this in itself is not neglect. This is what you call a feedback loop. So urban renewal destroyed thriving black businesses, then build it up. You seen what happened to look at Central Park. Central Park didn't always used to be Central Park. And yes, I'm referring to New York. It didn't always be, it was never really Central Park, right? So again, urban renewal destroyed thriving black businesses, black business districts under the banner of progress, which is a bunch of bullshit because highways cut through black neighborhoods nowadays. And this is because those neighborhoods had the least political protection. So then you have what you would consider the war on drugs. We all know how that played part in black neighborhoods, right? Now it's playing a part in brown neighborhoods and other marginalized communities as well. So what this did, the whole war on drugs, this criminalized behavior more harshly in black communities than it did in white ones or some other racialized community, right? And even when the usage rates were similar. You don't believe me? Look at the statistics per capita. Look at the statistics per capita. This is how you get mass incarceration. So now, when you actually think about this, right? Not only were the usage rates similar compared from black drug usage to white drug usage, what it did was it caused the neutral family household way more damage. So what this did was it removed the fathers from the home. It removed the wage earners. It removed the mothers from the home, and literal role models for entire neighborhoods were now being removed, whether they were looked at as drug dealers or not. Because 9 times out of 10, if you actually look at some of these people of color who are incarcerated in prisons right now, they're innocent. If you read through some of these dockets, you read through some of these cases, these people are being held against their will. These people are literally innocent. And it's unfortunate because the way the law is actually worded is is fucking indiscriminately heinous. Absolutely indiscriminately heinous. Because for instance, I was reading a docket, I was reading a case one day, and this gentleman was literally incarcerated for murder. Now, mind you, this gentleman never committed the murder. This gentleman never had the murder weapon in his hand. This gentleman never even witnessed the murder. He didn't even know what the fuck was going on at the time. So this gentleman was now being charged with murder. And he never even committed the crime. But yet and still he was charged with it because he drove the actual person who committed the crime to the scene, not knowing what was going on inside. And then now the person who commits the crime gets back into the vehicle and they both drive off. Him not even knowing what was going on. But since he drove them there, he was an accomplice, so he gets hit with the crime too. Conspiracy to commit. Which is ridiculous because this is why I believe a lot of people say, oh, lie detectors can't be admitted in court. Yes, they can. They play a major fucking role in uncovering the truth. Now, mind you, a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't want to take it. Why don't you? Take that lie, get that lie detector test. Always have those admitted in court, if you ask me. So again, before I got a little off track there. So when people say, why is there so much violence? The answer is not mysterious. It's literally become predictable at this point. Anyone who understands systems would expect exactly the same exact outcome. And that's literally the point. That's literally the point I was just making. Now, the third layer here, why crime is a symptom and not the cause. And this is because violence is not a personality trait. It's a stress response at scale. So when you're placed in these high stress environments, your impulsive impulsive impulsivities increase, excuse me. That means instability increases conflict. Scarcity increases competition. Hopelessness shortens time horizons. So, in other words, when people cannot see a future, the present becomes everything. Literally everything. It becomes everything to a person at that moment. And this shows up the same way everywhere across the board. Rural white communities with economic collapse experience spikes in addiction, domestic violence, and suicide. But nobody calls that white culture. They call it a crisis. You see, the difference is sympathy. You can weigh that as a pro and con. The difference is sympathy. So black suffering gets moralized more than anything else. White suffering gets medicalized. Don't believe me? Look it up. Or do I have to leave? As a matter of fact, I'll leave some sources down after I'm done with this live. So in other words, same pain, different story, different solutions. But it's the same fucking pain. Layer here. How the rhetoric protects budgets and power. This is going to be a little uncomfortable because if the public understood that crime as a policy failure, they would demand different budgets. They would ask why police budgets balloon while schools budgets close. So they would also begin to question why prisons end up getting funding guarantees while housing waits on grants. Doesn't make sense, but this is what happens every day. See, they would notice that punishment is fully funded while prevention is always too expensive. Now, they're taking here in Allentown a little bit more serious. We're trying to curve, what's the word I'm looking for? Prevention, and not just crime, but domestic violence. They're also trying to curve drug addiction. They're doing their best out here to curve this. And I'm gonna be honest, it's about damn time. I've been here in Allentown for over a decade now, and yeah, it's about damn time. It really is about damn time. So again, before I get too far ahead of myself, so the story has to stay focused on behavior and not design. So when you talk about black on black crime, keep what this does is that it keeps money flowing in the same direction. It keeps money flowing toward enforcement. It keeps money flowing towards surveillance. It keeps money flowing towards contracts, towards mass incarceration. Yet and still, it's not about safety. It never was about your safety. It's about allocation. So if you follow the money, the language will suddenly begin to make more sense to you. And on top of that, here's the next layer. It's because you'll have the internal damage and you'll see the psychological spillover. So in other words, let's try and turn this inward because this is going to matter. This actually does matter. When a lie is repeated long enough, some of it gets absorbed, and in the famous words, the lie becomes a truth. And it's not because people are weak. It's not. But because humans are pattern recognition machines. So when you have this rhetoric, this internalized rhetoric, what this does is it quiets down three different things. It lowers expectations, it normalizes the harm, and it reframes survival as failure. So young black people, right? Young black people start believing chaos is inevitable, instead of imposed. And the communities get blamed for conditions they did not create. And accountability becomes confused with self, what's the word I'm looking for? Flagellation, for lack of better terms here. And this is where respectability politics sneak in. If only we behaved better, they would treat us better. History says otherwise. Behavior did not stop redlining. Behavior did not stop segregation. Behavior did not stop mass incarceration. Now, power concedes nothing without pressure. In other words, the behavior does not matter. Period, point blank. It doesn't. Because if behavior actually did matter, we wouldn't be going through what we're going through now as black people. And if this was true, if this were true, please correct me. Please correct me. Matter of fact, let me get online. Let me get back on the live stream here. Because I might have missed a comment or two. I'm not sure. No, I didn't miss anything. All right, so I didn't miss anything. So, again, power concedes nothing without pressure. Now, why I think this is when people say personal responsibility, that more or less is a weapon. Because don't get me wrong, personal responsibility is real, but it is selectively invoked. Nobody tells a corporation to take personal responsibility instead of regulating it. Nobody tells these banks out here to take personal responsibility instead of auditing them. Nobody tells governments to take personal responsibility instead of reforming them. You see, responsibility only gets shouted at the powerless. This is not philosophy. This is just strategy here. So a mature analysis holds two truths at once. Something I said in the last video. Individuals make choices. Systems shape the menu of these choices. Ignoring either one is what you would call lazy thinking. And I've literally had arguments with people when it comes to lazy thinking. When it came to the whole COVID vaccine, a lot of people thought, "Oh, you got the vaccine because you think it's about putting your life on the line and you doing this, that, and the third." No, it's not about me putting my life on the line or me worried about my health. It's actual health in itself. So yeah, I wouldn't mind being used in that particular time when the COVID vaccine had came out. Yes, I took that COVID vaccine, strictly due to the reason of my fiance having cancer and she was passing from cancer. I did not want to make it even worse and have her catch another illness that she really didn't fucking deserve whatsoever. And I don't even want to get into that whole entire story. But again, if you notice, but notice which sides gets all the airtime. And 9 times out of 10, it's the one that has the lazy thinking. Now, when it comes to the debates in itself and why these debates go nowhere, you see, most arguments about this topic fail because they happen on the wrong battlefield. You know, people argue statistics when the fight is about frames. They argue morality when the fight is really about incentives. They argue emotions when the fight is really about power. You see, the problem with this is you cannot logic someone out of a position that pays their psychological rent. So the goal is to not convince everyone. Now, mind you, me being in sales, I've been in sales before. I've been in marketing. I've made leader. I've made management. I've been with multiple different companies. Why my LinkedIn doesn't show this anymore, I don't know. So now I have to go through my portfolio and put them back up there. But I've worked with different marketing companies, different sales companies. Now I run my own market. Now I'm an independent contractor, having my own DBA. So, in other words, I'm not in the business of convincing. Again, this is not some cheesy sales plug because you see the ticker at the bottom. Okay? Just air that out right now. But hey, if you do, there it is right there for you, right here at the bottom. There you go. All right? Whatever. But you have to realize that the goal is not to convince everyone. Me personally, I hate being in the business of convincing because if I have to convince you, that means I have to put my time, my effort, my energy into you getting to just to see the framework and not the outcome. That's what that means. When you're in the business of convincing someone, you have to, what you're doing is you are putting your time, your effort, your energy into just getting someone to see the framework and not the outcome. And the goal is literally here, back to the topic on hand. The goal is to change what sounds reasonable in public discourse. This is how the real shift happens. So when this is the pivot, because when you're reframing crime as infrastructure failure, this is where the pivot comes in at. Because crime is not primarily a policing issue or a policing issue. It's an infrastructure issue. Stable housing is an infrastructure. Mental health care is an infrastructure. Living wages are infrastructure. Education is an infrastructure. Community ownership is a fucking infrastructure. So when infrastructure actually works, crime begins to drop. This has been shown globally, historically, and repeatedly, time and time and time and time and time again. I'm losing my breath. I could talk about this all the time until I go blue in the fucking face. But here's the thing. Policing reacts, infrastructure prevents. That distinction matters the most. So what winning actually looks like is not being silent, because winning is not silence. Winning is replacement. You do not just say, stop saying black on black crime. You introduce a better language and use it relentlessly. You talk about concentrated poverty. You talk about policy-driven segregation. You talk about investment gaps. You talk about violence as a public health issue. Let that last one sink in, because people don't see violence as a public health issue. Because violence doesn't just take toll on the actual physical body, it takes toll in the mind. And if, believe it or not, a lot of people have so much stress on the mind that they can die from the stress. That stress leads to heartbreak. That heartbreak can lead to death. But here's what you have to do. You have to do it calmly. Calm confidence reads as an authority. No begging, no apologizing, no defensive posture whatsoever. None whatsoever. Because what we're doing is we're building towards solutions without fantasy here. Because this is by far, this is not about pretending communities do not have problems. That's childish as shit to think that communities do not have problems. This is about demanding adult solutions. So let's say, for instance, right, violence eruption programs that are from the community. That's a solution. Uh, Guaranteed housing initiatives. That's a solution. School funding reform. That's a solution. Let me think. Job pipelines tied to real wages. That's a solution. Community land trust. That's a solution. Mental health access without the fucking stigmas. You see, these are not radical ideas. These are actual proven ones. They just threaten entrenched interest. So this is literally why the rhetoric fights so hard to stay alive. Black on black crime this, black on black crime that. I was talking about this yesterday. They beat it into your head to make it seem like, hey, black people are the problem, when in reality we're not. It's the system. Then they want to say, hey, it's not the system. Yes, it is, because look at how the system words every fucking thing. You see, this language. See, language shapes imagination. Imagination shapes these policies, and policies shape the reality of everything. So, black on black crime, that whole entire phrase collapses imagination. It tells people the story over and over and over again. And rejecting it just reopens the future. That's literally what it does. If you reject that whole phrase, black on black crime, and hey, well, let's talk about the 69% average of white on white crime, when, because if you look at black on black crime happens 66% of the time per capita. Per capita, white on white crime is a hell of a lot more. 69%. You don't believe me? Go look this up. Or matter of fact, I'll leave some resources down in the comments. All right. Now, mind you, this is not about being defensive. This is not about being defensive by a long shot. It's about being strategic. The goal is to not argue harder. The goal is not to argue harder. The goal is to make the old argument sound outdated, lazy, and unfucking serious. Because it is. I hope this is resonating. And once that happens, the conversation shifts from blame to design, from punishment to prevention, from noise to outcome. This is how power moves, people. That is the actual work. Uh, but with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this live. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. I didn't mean to go on for so long, but this is something that I'm passionate about. So before I go, since today is February 4th, let me see what's going on, what actually happened today on February 4th. I gotta check through my archives. That's about February wrong? Yeah, it's about February wrong. So, let's see. I think every day I'm going to be doing this whole black on black crime thing. And I'm going to be honest with you, what set me off about this whole black on black crime thing, again, was this conversation that came about. It really wasn't even a conversation. It was really just one side of him making the statement that he made, that he wanted to talk about black on black crime. So before it even got to the point, I'm going to just go ahead and say, hey, we're going to shut that shit down right now. Plain and simple. Whether you like it or not. And if they do, the gentleman, Daniel Dutch, he has a speaking event coming up February 15th. Where exactly it's going to happen, I don't know. I probably won't be attending to hear about some lazy rhetoric about black on black crime. I'm not going to attend something like that whatsoever. Now, this isn't popping up. Oh, you don't want me to get the info out, huh, people? Is that what this is? You don't want me to tell the people what actually has been really going on? Happens from time to time. But no, I will not be attending that event. I'm not going to be listening to some rhetoric whatsoever. So, guess whose birthday it is? I push that push. Everybody move to the back of the bus. Do you want to bump and jump with us? In other words, Rosa Parks. Civil rights activist Rosa Parks is actually born on February 4th. So I believe that means she is an Aquarius. I think that means she's an Aquarius. I'm not sure. I don't know her moon or rising signs, but sun sign would definitely be Aquarius. And believe it or not, Major League Baseball finally begins to induct Negro League players. I can't believe they even decided to word it like that. But this is from Birmingham, Alabama. February 4th, 2017. But yeah, so obviously there's definitely more history than just the surface level here. Right now, this is just surface level. You guys know me. I'm a lot more surface level than anything, a lot more in depth than anything else. But if you don't know me, hey, now you know me. There's the website down below. I am ShelbyClark.online. If you've been actually looking at the ticker, yes, you can get your free personalized marketing diagnosis done by me. Now, if you don't know what a marketing diagnosis is, then I suggest you go to the website if you have a business. Go to the website, enter in your information, download the marketing brief, fill it out. What I'm going to do after you fill this out, I can't believe I'm actually turning this to a fucking cheesy sales plug right now. When You guys are done filling out that brief. Don't send it to anybody else. Don't sit there and say, hey, I got this brief. I don't know what to do with it. I sent it in to him. Did you try reaching out to me some other kind of way? Because if I don't reach out to you via email, then I'm pretty sure there's another way you can reach out to me. It's called social media. Send me the brief back. I'll let you know whether or not you have leverage. If you have leverage, I'll let you know. If you don't, I'll help you cut out the bullshit so you can have leverage. Just make sure to have a budget and we can talk numbers from there. But with that being said, deuces, y'all. This your man Shelby. I'm out, and y'all be easy.